Coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, still reacting to the walk-off victory by the Silver and Black. Hand out a game ball to a guy that I completely failed to give one out to on Monday, so we'll do that. Plus, take you back inside the Raiders locker room. We'll talk about the parity across the NFL and what that can mean for the Raiders and their future. Your calls and texts will close out the show. It's all coming up on Tuesday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, December 20th, 2022.
Just win. Just win. Just win. Just win.
The autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you round and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won. And won. And won. And won. And won.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen each and every day. Remember, you can find the Locked On Raider podcast free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Definitely appreciate everyone who chimes in and checks us out on YouTube. Thanks to my guy Ari on Twitter at Ari Produces. Also, I'd like to apologize off top for getting the show up a little bit later than normal. I had to do Freddie and Fitzsimmons on ESPN Radio on Monday night, so I didn't get off till late, and then tried to get prepared and knocked out the podcast, and it just wasn't able to get it up at my normal time, so I do apologize for that. But today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app stores. Our listeners get 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code LOCKEDON. That's all caps in the game store. What is Ultimate Football GM? Don't worry. Tell you about it a lot more later on after, as a matter of fact, segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. But let's go ahead and jump into the show, and got a lot to get to on today's show. Very excited about it. Very excited about the whole week because, well, the Raiders will be in action on Christmas Eve, which is Saturday. So there you go. It's going to be a short week, and the Raiders will be back in action and see what they do. Can they build off that victory they had over the Patriots at Allegiant Stadium on Sunday, winning the game 30-24? And wanted to give out a game ball. I gave out game balls on Monday, and I handed them out to Chandler Jones and Keelan Cole. Those were the obviouses, right? But being caught up in the moment and being so excited about the way that the game ended and still kind of in a disbelief on the way that the game ended, I completely forgot and completely whiffed and failed on my part, as a matter of fact, to hand out a game ball to a guy who obviously deserved it, and that was Malcolm Koonce. Malcolm Koonce has not got a lot of burn defensively. He's a guy that when he was drafted, I was excited about the young man out of Buffalo, thought he was going to be able to be a situational pass rusher, and at times in his career he has been, but hasn't really got on the field this year in a defensive role too much. But by way of special teams, he's been on special teams quite a bit this year, and he was there on Sunday and made a huge play for the Raiders right before halftime, blocking the punt and setting the Raiders up with a short field to get into the end zone before halftime, putting them up 17-3. If he doesn't block that punt, Raider Nation, the Raiders don't score. The clock was basically going to run down. They were going to punt the ball to Hunter Renfrow, and the Raiders were going to have to go the whole length of the field to score in less than a minute, and I just don't think that was going to happen. As a matter of fact, I think head coach Josh McDaniels was very comfortable with just going ahead and going into the locker room with the 10-3 lead and taking their chances just because, right? I just don't think that he was going to try to push the issue to try to get the ball down the field, or else he would have called a timeout a lot earlier. So Malcolm Koonce has to get a game ball. He doesn't block that kick. The Raiders don't score that touchdown to Mac Hollins. It just doesn't happen. And then who knows what we're talking about on Monday and today on the show. Most likely it's probably not talking about a Raider victory. So I definitely want to hand out a game ball to Malcolm Koonce, a guy that I completely whiffed off on Monday, and I apologize. Matter of fact, when we talked to head coach Josh McDaniels on Monday at the Intermountain Healthcare Performance Center, I asked him the significance of Malcolm Koonce coming up with that big block, especially since he doesn't get a lot of burn defensively. So sometimes guys won't work as hard on special teams if they're not doing what they really want to do, which is out there special teams. So here's head coach Josh McDaniels talking about, Malcolm Koonce and him being ready for that moment. And also you'll hear a follow-up by Vinny Bonsignore asking Coach McDaniels if he was going to call a timeout because of that situation. Here it is. Check it out.
Yeah, and I know that they had a little bit of, I think it was some kind of a miscommunication relative to being, some of them thought that the ball wasn't going to be snapped, and then obviously the ball got snapped. So I give credit to our guys for being ready to go. You know what I mean? Even though there was some other stuff going on, like once he saw the ball get snapped, he just went and did his job, and was fortunate to, have the opportunity presented to him, and he took advantage of it. So Malcolm's really tried hard to improve in a lot of ways this season. Unfortunately for him, he's in a room with two guys that, have played a lot of football, and Clee's got a different role than Malcolm. So really those three guys kind of have managed a lot of that stuff. But Malcolm's really been unselfish. He's played in a lot of kicking situations all season long, and done a nice job for us. So, it doesn't surprise me that he was ready to go, and look forward to continue to have him grow as he gets older here.
Obviously that all worked out, but did you give any consideration to calling a timeout there?
I did. I was not. We're going to ask the question. They pumped the clock, because the clock was getting low, and then they did this, and then they actually pumped the clock back up, which is why I think some of their guys were trying to get either the snapper or the punter or whatever to waste more time. You know what I mean? And so I was literally on the verge of doing this, and then the ball got snapped. And so, I'm not sure exactly what happened there with why the play clock got pumped again. And so I was definitely on the verge of doing that when that happened. Such is life.
So there you go right there. Head coach Josh McDaniels talking about Malcolm Kuntz and talking about he's very unselfish. He works very hard. He was in the locker room. His locker is right next to Chandler Jones. You heard that locker room sound on Monday's show. He was one of the guys, him and Kyle Pecco, those two guys were having a lot of fun while Chandler was talking with us on Sunday following the game. And so he's been working really hard. I don't know what his future holds, but you heard Josh McDaniels say that, he's looking forward to him continuing to grow with the team. So we'll see what that means. But for Sunday, came up with that big play with the pump block. So he definitely gets a game ball from me. Now, speaking of the Raiders locker room, let's stay in the Raiders locker room. A guy who I believe has been a big factor on the team and really probably been playing a lot bigger and making a lot more noise and being a bigger impact than even his stats say. That's safety Duron Harmon, a guy that I was very excited about when the Raiders brought him in because he's a guy that they called the closer. He's a guy that's always around the ball. He's always making plays. He's lining guys up. He's helping them out, wearing the green dot. I mean, there's a lot of things to like about what Duron Harmon is doing. Caught up with him in the Raiders locker room following the game.
You were on the field for the final play. What was it like?
Yeah, it was crazy. Only thing you kind of say is WTF. I know kids probably watching right now. So, it was crazy. But it just shows, kind of just we're prepared for everything. Did we think they were going to do that on the last play? No. But people did a good job of kind of staying in their lanes, just keeping the ball in front, tackling in it. And, when teams make a mistake, we want to make sure that we maximize it and make them pay. And we did. Chad did a good job of high-pointing the ball and then not being tackled by the quarterback and running in. And, that's the third walk-off this year, man. It's wild. It's wild.
Ever seen a walk-off like that?
Nah, never like that. Never like that. So, it's cool. It was super cool. It's a game that I'll remember for forever.
You always mention that Chandler does so much for the team. After that, he had the 3-sack game. You guys were talking about how much he does. How nice is that for him to get that?
Oh, without a doubt. You just look at the impact that he's had, over, the last 3 weeks. It's been game-changing plays, 3 sacks, forced fumble, and now, a walk-off, fumble return, with the game on the line, man. And, obviously, the statistics, that everybody else outside of the building will want to see hasn't been there, but I'm telling you, he's been playing tremendous football for us, man, and just excited for him.
So you guys good to move Chan to the DB room after that?
Hey, I don't know. He high-pointed the ball. The only thing is, I don't know if he played DB too slow. That was some stiff running, but, hey, nobody had to catch him. So, hey, just happy he got in his zone.
How shocked were you just when you saw the ball go in the air? You don't expect that.
I tell you the truth, I was very shocked because, I just thought, Mondre would just kind of go down, 0 seconds left. But, he did, and, like I said, the thing about this league is when people make mistakes, you have to make them pay, and we did,
Ron, before the 3-game winning streak, you all had a few weeks back. I know you kind of spoke up and kind of not called to mention that you want to see them celebrate each other more. After that play, you see everybody rush around Chandler Jones. What can that do for a team in terms of tangible results?
Just true energy, just cheering for each other. being excited for each other. When somebody make a play, be excited like you made the play, because at the end of the day, nobody made the play by themselves. It takes all 11. You know, this is the ultimate team game, and that's why I truly enjoy it, because you need a team, you know, to be successful in this game. And it was cool. I kind of felt bad for Chad because he couldn't move. It was like 40 cats on him, and I'm not gonna lie, I was one of them. Just wanted to get a piece of it, man, because it was a tremendous play. So it was cool.
You said you were shocked by when you saw Ramondre lateral. What was your reaction when you saw the lateral it to the quarterback with Chandler Jones standing right over him?
I just seen him high point, and I was like, don't get tackled by the quarterback. And he stiff armed, and I said, oh, you know what? And I was just like, wow, we really just won like this. So it was cool.
What was the thought process when they kept replaying Keelan's touchdown?
Well, I was just like, at first I'm like, dang, I don't know if he got the foot then, but then once you seen like the black rubber come up right in front of, it was he got his foot in. Like, tremendous ball thrown by Derek, first of all, and that's a hard catch, you know, to get both feet in right there. So big ups to, you know, Derek for the great throw, and Keelan for making a tremendous catch with the game on the line.
It can never be easy, huh?
Hey, I guess not.
So there it was right there. Raiders safety Jerron Harmon in the Raiders locker room, and you could just hear the excitement in his voice. You can hear how excited he was for Chandler Jones. And again, just for the team, continuing to stay together and continuing to fight, even though the season has not gone the way that they've wanted to go. But Jerron Harmon's always the guy that we can go to when we get into the locker room, and he'll break it down and let us know if it's a win, a loss, tie, whatever the case may be. He'll give us a few minutes of his time, so definitely appreciate that. Hopefully enjoyed that. And I'll tell you, Raider Nation, we had a lot of guys that we talked to in the Raiders locker room. Matter of fact, I got them listed over here. Let me go ahead and check off my list right here. Chandler Jones, heard from him on Monday's show. Keelan Cole, also heard on Monday. Darren Waller, Mac Hollins, Jerron Harmon, Max Crosby, Hunter Renfrow, Nate Hobbs. All those guys we caught up to in the Raiders locker room following the game on Sunday. So maybe have an opportunity to sprinkle it in a little bit more throughout the course of, you know, the week. But if not, I'll just have it on my radio show on Raider Nation Radio 920 Unnecessary Roughness. Coming up in segment number 2, parody in the NFL. The NFL loves it. And what could it mean for the silver and black moving forward? We'll talk about that in segment number 2 after I tell you about a couple of the great sponsors, including the title sponsor of today's show, which I'm pretty excited about, Ultimate Football GM. It's a new partner and sponsor of the Locked On Raiders podcast. It's the mobile game, Ultimate Football GM. If you've ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM, like you want to be Dave Ziegler, you want to manage your football franchise, now you can. Your dream could come true. This game is for you. Manage every strategic aspect of your team. Play through the season. Lead your team to glory. You're responsible for everything. Hiring the right coaches and coordinators, trading players, making draft picks, navigating your franchise through free agency and the draft, and all the ups and downs of a season. So no matter what the Raiders have done so far this season, whatever you thought, oh, this guy should be gone, this guy shouldn't be there, this guy should be the coach, this guy, you can do that with this game. All this is a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Football GM is completely free and playable offline. Play on the go and when you want to. And all listeners of the Locked On Raiders podcast right now can get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On. That's all caps in the game store. That's Locked On in all caps. Make sure you check it out today. And again, all you got to do, download the game, visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the App Store. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today. I also want to tell you about Turo. What is Turo, you ask? The world's largest car-sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car you want, wherever you want it, from a community, a local host. Browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget across the U.S., UK, Canada, and Australia. You can book a spacious SUV, minivan for a family road trip, or you can get a classic or luxury car for a special event, birthday, or holiday. Find affordable economy cars if you're on a budget and just need to get from A to B. You can test drive that electrical vehicle that you've had your eye on for a while, see if it fits in your everyday lifestyle. Many Turo hosts can even deliver the car right to you. All you got to do, just check them out today at Turo.com. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Forget boring rental cars. Again, find your drive at Turo.com. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Really want to talk about the parity in the NFL. And this is by no means trying to make an excuse for the Raiders in the season that they've had. They're sitting there at 6-8 with 3 more games left to go. I don't know how the season's going to wrap up. I just don't. We don't know if they're going to win out. We don't know if they're going to win 1 more game. We don't know if they're going to win 2 more games. Or hell, we don't know if they're not going to win any more games. Don't have any idea. But right now, as 15 weeks in the NFL is officially in the books, the Green Bay Packers eliminated the Rams from the playoff contention. So there will be a new Super Bowl contender or a Super Bowl winner this year, right? The defending Super Bowl champs are officially out in the Rams. You just look at the landscape of the league, and I talked about this briefly on my radio show on Monday. But right now, if you look at the standings, 20 out of 32 teams in the NFL are 500 or worse. Only 7 teams actually have double-digit wins in the league right now, led by the Philadelphia Eagles with 13, and all of a sudden they have a quarterback situation. Jalen Hurts is injured and probably won't play this week against the Cowboys, and who knows if he plays anymore throughout the course of the regular season. But that's not for right now. Again, only 7 teams in the league have double-digit wins. The AFC South, every team is 500 or below. The Titans are actually leading that division at 7-7. They're in first place at 7-7. The NFC South, I guess all the Souths are really bad. South sides ain't living up to what they're billing, right? NFC South is all under 500. Tampa Bay is leading that at 6-8 in first place. 6-8, does that sound familiar? Yeah, that's the Raiders' record right now. And of course, doesn't matter. They're not in the NFC South, so they can't be, in the playoffs. I get that. But the point is, 20 teams. There's only 32 in the league. 12 teams are above 500 right now in the NFL. So to me, and I know it's a small sample size, but if you remember last year, remember when the Raiders made the playoffs? The final week of the season, week 18. Remember how many teams were still in the hunt late in the season? There was a handful of them, a bunch of them, right? The Raiders game alone, the Raiders were worried about that game. The Chargers were worried about that game. The Steelers were worried about that game. There were so many teams worried about that game, right? There were so many teams paying attention to that final game of the season, and that literally was the final game of the season. Remember, that was Sunday Night Football. That was the final game of the season, of the 2021 season, and the Raiders won it and punched their ticket to the playoffs, where they eventually lost to the Cincinnati Bengals in the wild card round. But to me, it makes me feel better. Again, I don't want to make excuse for the coaching staff. I don't want to make excuses for the team for not achieving what we all believed, or at least what I believed the Raiders were going to do in 2022 with the weapons that they had, with the head coach that they have, with the play call that they had. I believe that they were supposed to be a double-digit win team. Obviously, that's not possible with 3 games left and only 6 wins under their belt. Again, don't know how this is going to wrap up. But for me, when I look around the league, it makes me feel better that, you know what, maybe this team isn't 2 or 3 off seasons away from being a really good team. Maybe they can be really close. Maybe they are really close right now, and that they go and make a few moves, a few minor tweaks and changes here and there in the offseason, and all of a sudden they could be there. I mean, look at the Detroit Lions. Did anyone think that they were going to be a 7-win team at this point in the season? I didn't. Did anyone think the Jets were going to be a 7-win team with quarterback questions? I didn't. How about the Giants? I didn't, right? I mean, you understand what I'm saying? There's so many teams that are very similar, and they're all close to together. And really, and I know ifs and buts and all those good things, I get it. Raiders win a couple of the games that they should have won. Then, I mean, they're the leader in the clubhouse for a lot of games, right? I mean, so it just makes me feel better. And I think that at some point, and the NFL loves this, the NFL loves that there's so much parity because, 1, all the fan bases stay engaged. 2, they want to have parity. They don't want to have the Kansas City Chiefs winning the AFC West every single year like they've done now 7 seasons in a row since they are the AFC West division champs for 2022. They have 7 titles now, division titles under their belt. They want to see more parity. They want to see teams that are, 8-8 and going into the final week of the season or going into, game 17. They want to see that and know that they have to win to get in. And, there was a time where I said that you just about have to be a double-digit win team to make the playoffs. That's not necessarily the case anymore, right? There's parity. And again, it's only a couple seasons sample size, but ever since they've expanded to 17 games and also allowed 7 teams in each conference to get into the playoffs, you see everything is a lot tighter. Look, the Green Bay Packers won on Monday Night Football, and they're still in the mix. They need help just like the Raiders, but they win out and they get the help that they need, they're in. The Raiders, they win out, they get the help that they need, they're in. And I'm not banking on that at all. Don't get me wrong. I'm thinking that the Raiders have 3 more games and then boom, we're in the offseason conversation. And we're talking about what the Raiders are going to do moving forward. That's what I believe. But I believed that last year and they went on a 4-game winning streak. So it kind of gets me fired up and excited to see the moves that this team will make in the offseason because, again, it feels like teams aren't as far away as they used to be, where it felt like, okay, these teams were going to have to take years on top of years to get where they need to be a contender, to be a team that is going to make the playoffs and could go on a run, right? Even the Cincinnati Bengals started out really bad to start the season, and then what? They're on a 6-game winning streak right now, right? And that's the defender when they were in the Super Bowl a year ago. So I mean, it just feels like there's so many teams that are more similar than others, right? As of Sunday, when the Patriots visited Allegiant Stadium, they were the 7th seed, and you see what kind of team they are. They're not that good. They have a good defense. They have a solid defense, but I mean, they only have 7 wins. The Raiders have 6. So again, there's so many teams that are very close to each other. It should give you more confidence that this front office, this staff, Dave Ziegler, Champ Kelly, Josh McDaniels, Patrick Graham, these guys could figure it out. And they may be not as far away as we thought when they were, 2 and whatever they were, 2 and 5 or 2 and 7, whatever the start to the season was that really sucked, right? Before they went on their 3-game winning streak, right? I mean, it was terrible. And I know there's been some tough losses that are really inexcusable, like the Rams loss, the Cardinals loss. Those are 2 in particular that are inexcusable. You just get those 2 back. All of a sudden, it's a whole different ballgame that we're talking about. We're talking about an 8-win team with the potential to go win 11 games if they win out. So it just seems like that in the NFL now, the way it is, the way it's set up, the way it's designed, one, every game you're a couple plays away from actually winning it, regardless who you're going up against. Hell, even if you want to go back to week 5, the Raiders are a couple dumb plays away from beating the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City. They had the Chiefs on the ropes and let them slip away, right? Didn't finish it. Their fault, not the Chiefs' fault. That was their fault. But again, just a few plays away. I'm sure if Josh McDaniels had an opportunity to do it over again, I bet you he'd kick that extra point and tie the game and take his chances and getting the ball back and thinking his team could go down and score some kind of points, if nothing less than a Daniel Carlson field goal attempt because he's money, right? I mean, again, just a few decisions here, a few bad plays here and there, and that goes to everybody. That's not just, the players on the field. That goes to the coaching staff as well. They decide to do something differently. Patrick Graham, I bet you if he had that opportunity to not do press man coverage on that final drive for the Rams, bet you he'd feel a lot better about the outcome of the game because the Raiders probably win that game. Jerry Tillery, dumb play, knock the ball out of hand, get an unsportsmanlike penalty. Small things here and there. So not trying to, gas you up, not trying to blow smoke up your backside, just saying that I feel like, and maybe it's just me, and if it is, that's fine. You can hit me up and let me know. The Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line wide open like some old school TV antennas, 707-654-4693. Let me know about it. Do you think that this team could go into the offseason and maybe just make some minor changes, some tweaks here and there, couple little things, couple upgrades here and there, maybe a little bit of personnel change, boom, boom. Bring in a couple guys, draft a couple guys, particularly in defense. Have a defense that can help out just a little bit more. Maybe a bolster of the offensive line a little bit more. And they could be right there. They can run with just about anybody. I said at the beginning of the season, I didn't think there was a team in the league that they can't beat. I still don't think there's a team in the league that they can't beat. They were toe-to-toe with the Chiefs in week 5. Toe-to-toe. And that is one of the best teams in the league. Already the AFC West Division champs. I think they can run with Buffalo. I think that they can play with the Eagles. I think they can play with the Cowboys. The Vikings, I don't even think they're that great of a team. So, I mean, the team, San Francisco, that's going to be a hell of a test on New Year's. I'm interested to see what the Raiders look like, how they stack up against that San Francisco defense, because, man, they fly around. They are aggressive. That defense is clearly the best defense in the league, and that's going to make it difficult on the Raiders. But, they have Brock Purdy at the helm as the quarterback. They have a running game. Maybe the Raiders defense shows up and makes life difficult on them and see what happens. You got to leave it all out there in the field, and I do believe the Raiders will do that. But there's not a team in the league that they can't beat. And so a few minor changes, all of a sudden we could be talking about a whole nother team next season. And I hate to say next season, I'm not asking you to be patient. And I'm not even asking you to believe me. You could say that, you know what, Q, I think you're absolutely wrong. That's okay. But I'm just looking at the landscape of the league. I'm looking around and saying, yeah, there's a lot more parity than there used to be. Feels like there's way more teams that are just okay to good as opposed to good to great, if you know what I mean. But that's what I got for you for segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Just wanted to talk about the parity across the NFL. What is on your mind? Well, we'll get to it in segment number 3. Your calls and checks straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 4693. Before I get to that, though, do want to tell you about one of our great sponsors, and that is Prize Picks. Prize Picks. What is Prize Picks? Well, it's daily fantasy made simple. You're not playing against anybody. You're playing against Prize Picks projections. You pick 2 to 5 players. If they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. Prize Picks offers projections in any sport you watch: NFL, NBA, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, anything you can imagine, they've got you covered. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It is that easy. Safe and fast withdrawals, currently operational in over 30 states and in Canada. All you got to do, download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com, sign up and play daily fantasy sports. And first-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. You deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. You deposit $50, yep, Prize Picks will give you $50. Don't forget, use that promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. Here we go, Raider Nation, segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and text straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Only got time for a couple in today's show, so let's start things off with Vader Raider in the 303. He's calling to give a few different comments about the game, good and bad, about the team, and again, about the game. Here he is, Vader Raider in the 303.
Q, Raider Nation. It's your boy, Vader Raider. First of all, great win for the team. I've never honestly seen that play ever. I think in a game, I'm sure that there's been other times where it's happened, but I don't know. I personally never have seen it. And we need to come up with a name for this game. We need to come up for a game for it. We've got Sia Hands. We've got the Holy Roller. We've got the tuck rule. We've got the inaccurate reception. You know, what name should we give for this game? First of all, let me by saying Derek Carr in the offense, you get a big fat F for your performance on Sunday. I heard what you said, Q, about he didn't see him when he threw the screen, you know, the attempted screen pass to Devontae. That's all well and good if that's what he's going to come up with as an excuse. I don't care. You've been in the league 9 years. If you see a guy creeping up to the line of scrimmage, you either audible out of it or you pump fake it or you don't throw that ball. You know, not seeing it after 9 years in the league, I'm not buying it. The offensive line, horrible play. Horrible play from them on Sunday. As far as the defense, hats off to the defense. The defense played admirable. They played complimentary defense on Sunday. And you know what? It's really sad that this offense, again, did not step up for a second game in a row. Not too sure if how things are going to go in Pittsburgh, but I'm really hoping that we can put it together. I don't know. I guess I can't be mad. It's a great game, great finish. Very uncharacteristic of a Bill Belichick-led team. You just don't see a Bill Belichick-led team do that. But hey, you know what? I'll take the W. Usually I don't at this time of year. Usually I'm just ticked off at Derek for all of his lackluster play. But you know what? It was exciting to watch, and yeah, go Raiders. Hopefully we can do something next week on Christmas Eve. All right, Raider Nation. Have a great rest of your holiday season. Don't forget, tip your delivery drivers. Vader Raider, out.
Thank you so much for the call, my man. Yeah, great finish. Shocking finish, but a great finish. As far as the DC interception, kind of like I talked about it on Monday, I really think we just need to give the defensive back a lot of credit. He made a great play. You know, he moved when he saw Devontae move in. Devontae, he shaded in just a little bit, kind of moved in motion, and then that's when it caught the defensive back's attention. Derek tried to smoke it to Devontae, and again, Duggar just made a really good play. I think sometimes we just need to tip the cap and say, you know what? That was a damn good play. We can, argue back and forth if it was DC's fault, if it was a bad play, if he's a 9-year vet, whatever, yada, yada, yada. It kind of is what it is. We can respectfully agree to disagree on that one. I just think that it was a great play by a defensive back, and so I just choose to give him a lot of credit for that. And as far as the offense, it was bad in the second half. Second half, it was terrible, and I really believe, and I even asked Josh McDaniels about this on Monday, about the fact that, the offensive line was banged up, and it was. I mean, they had 2 guards playing in that game, Jordan Meredith and Hronis Grasu, that weren't even on the active roster the last time the Raiders took the field against the Rams. They weren't even on the active roster. They were on the practice squad, right? Or not even on the team, right? And Jordan Meredith, he was in the unemployment line. He gets moved up to the practice squad, and then he gets moved up to the active roster, right? And was used and had to be put into action because Dylan Parham went out with a knee injury, which I'm very concerned about this week against Pittsburgh. I'm really concerned about that offensive line because the Steelers have dudes who can get to the quarterback. And it's just as concerned as I were about the Patriots getting to Derek Carr, very concerned about the Steelers getting to Derek Carr as well. But Vader Raider, thank you so much for that, my man. I appreciate you and look forward to seeing that Christmas Eve game versus Pittsburgh. Up next, I got a text from Paulie B in the 559. He said, wow, wild game. Even up 17-3, had zero comfort in it at halftime with the way this year's gone. But it was awfully nice waving goodbye to the Pats fans and pointing to the exits. W made for a great drive home. Not sure the image comes through on this, but it was great meeting you. Keep kicking it out the quality product. Paulie B in the 559. It was a picture. I did get to meet Paulie B, and I appreciate the text, my man. Got to meet him and his family at the Torch on Sunday. It was awesome. And yeah, the picture came through. Thank you so much for taking the time and coming up and saying hello. And like I said, it was great to meet you and the family. And I'm sure you guys had a good time at the game given that outcome. So thanks so much for that, my man. I appreciate it. And make sure you hold it down for me in the 559, my man. Those are some of my old stomping roots. So definitely appreciate you. Up next, I got a call from the 916. He didn't give me his name, but he's calling to talk about the game, the play by Jones, and also the finish of this season. Here he is, young man calling from the 916.
Hey, what's up, Q? Man, Victory Monday. Man, don't feel good. That game was a really good game, man. I mean, we almost lost it there at the end, but, nevertheless, we pulled it off right there at the end. Shout out to Chandler Jones, man. He made, the play of the game, man. I mean, there has to be a name for that game and that play because that's going down in history. I think it should be called the Immaculate Interception. That's what I think. But man, if the Raiders can keep playing like this, man, end the year strong, man. I mean, even if we don't make it to playoffs and we can end the year 9-8, man, I'll be very happy with just going out strong like that. But yeah, man, I'm just happy that we won and not, here moping that we lost. So, hopefully the Raiders can keep winning, keep doing their thing. I mean, the last few times we played the Steelers, we've beaten them. I think that I haven't really beaten us in a while. I think the last time they beat us is when Spurgeon Seymour hit Ben Roethlisberger in the nose. But we'll see what happens, man. Q, continue to do your thing, man. Love the podcast and everything. I'm out. Just win, baby.
Thank you so much for the call, my man. And yeah, that big play by Jones, that great effort by the Raiders to hang on, to find a way to win that game the way that they did, right? I mean, I was just happy that the Raiders were forcing overtime because I really felt like the Patriots had so much momentum in the second half and the Raiders could do nothing, either because they were penalizing themselves with false starts or delay of games, or they just couldn't move the ball. They couldn't pick up a first down. The offensive line was leaky. I mean, you name it, it happened to the Raiders in the second half, and still, they were still strong enough to find a way to win, and the defense kept fighting, kept trying to give the Raiders offense another chance by getting off the field and getting the ball back to the offense, which they ultimately did. And you got to give Derek a lot of credit for completing that 4th down and 10 play that kept the drive alive. That pass to Keelan Cole was a super great pass. I mean, it really was. Anyone who's not giving him credit for that pass doesn't realize how difficult that pass was. And that catch was very hard, too. That's why I gave Keelan Cole the game ball on Monday, because I know that none of that was easy. So thank you so much for that call. I do appreciate you. Next up, we got a text from Tadris in New Jersey. It's a pretty lengthy text. It says, thank you, Tadris from New Jersey. I've heard so many of our Monday episodes of head scratching. What went wrong this season? What a great episode of something actually going right. I don't ever do this, but I had to listen to the Lock On Patriots to hear them explain what went wrong from their end. Their takeaways, the most dumbest plays in NFL history. 1, Marcus Jones was on pace to get player of the game with his defense. Then in the final drive, they had him play 10, 15 yards off the ball. 2, final defensive drive could not get pressure on Carr. Kudos to our O-line when it counted. And of course, the end of the game interception. They said it was that they as Patriot fans are used to other teams doing. Oh, it's what they as Patriots fans are used to as other teams doing. I get it. Your boy from Crossover Thursday thought his prediction of 24-17 was about to come true. I'm so glad to hear him so let down as we have been more times than not this season. Lastly, my son and I are heading to Pittsburgh this weekend for the game. Any suggestions? The low will be 7 degrees with the high at 17. I'm sure our love for the Raiders will warm us up. I'm sure you're not making the trip, but it'd been nice to meet you. Go Raiders. That's from Tadrees from New Jersey, chiming in on listen to what Mike Debate had to say, Locked On Patriots. And I was shocked to see the Patriots make plays like that. I was shocked to see a Bill Belichick-led team make a bunch of bad decisions, and they made a bunch of bad decisions. Calling timeout on the touchdown pass that they had, just running the ball so effectively and then deciding to throw the ball 3 times from the goal line. Thought that was bad. Talking about Marcus Jones lining up the way he did on that final drive. Thought that was bad. Obviously, the laterals was bad. I mean, there was a lot of bad that the Patriots did in undisciplined and just very unpatriot-like. So, I could totally understand the frustration of Michael Debate. He was a great dude, though. A great host of the Locked On Patriots. Always fun when we catch up on the crossover edition. And it looked like for a minute that the Patriots were going to win that game. And you got to give the Raiders a lot of credit. As far as the game on Saturday in Pittsburgh, I'm not making the trip. I don't have any suggestions. I do know it's going to be cold, though. So you guys find some way to stay warm, do the best you can, have fun. I was there in Pittsburgh last year. It was earlier in the year. It was in September, as a matter of fact. And it was a lot of fun to be there. I actually hooked up with Chris Carter, host of Locked On Steelers, who I'll talk to this week on the crossover edition. He was a great host, took me around the area a little bit, but I don't know. I don't really know that area outside of that trip I made. So hopefully you guys have a really good time. Hopefully the Raiders can provide a really good time by getting a victory on Christmas Eve and, shutting up all those Steeler fans. So, man, just have a good time. That's the most important thing. When you go out there, just know that you're out there spending some great quality time with your son, and that's awesome. That's something that you can never get back, right? And believe me, I wish every day that I could do that one more time with my son. As a matter of fact, last year, that was Kimani's game because it was in September, right around Kimani's birthday, and that was hashtag Kimani's game, and the Raiders won it for him, so that was awesome. That was Henry Ruggs getting that nice touchdown catch, that bomb from Carr late that led to the victory. But, man, if you get that opportunity, man, spend that time with your son and soak it in, regardless of the outcome of the game. Just enjoy it because of who's sitting next to you, the person you made the trip with, which is your son. So thank you so much for that. I do appreciate you. Again, that was Tadrees from New Jersey, and that's all I got time for on today's show. Coming up tomorrow, I'll get some more calls and texts like Central Valley Raider. I got a text from Brent from Boston. Vegas Austin called in. Got all those coming up, plus a lot more. Plus, we'll have more news and notes of the day. Later on today, the coordinators are supposed to talk, Mick Lombardi and Patrick Graham, so we'll finally hear from them. We didn't get to hear from them at all last week. Kept getting pushed back to the point where it just got canceled altogether. So Patrick Graham and Mick Lombardi will talk today, so we'll have some sounds from that and plenty more where that came from here on the Locked On Raiders podcast as we start to turn the page to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Again, the Raiders playing on a short week on Christmas Eve, Saturday in Pittsburgh, Week 16 action. So thank you, Raider Nation, so much for making the show your first listen each and every day. Remember, you can find the show free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Shout out to my man Ari, doing a great job keeping us going on YouTube, at Ari Produces on Twitter. Make sure you give him a follow. And again, thank him very much for making sure we're on point and on YouTube. So until tomorrow, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family, and most importantly, as always, just win, baby.